sell me out for fucking anything. They don't care. And I think both of them have been told that I'm toast. And that's what they're talking publicly. That's why I think. And I'm not saying that as an admission of guilt at all, because I've done nothing. Especially in Florida. They have jurisdiction in Florida. I have literally not left my house. So I don't have a fucking clue what they're doing. Scary. So when they arrest me, it shows how scary it is. And I hope every American at home also understands that. It's supposed to be. The basic rule of law is, oh, look, we've identified a crime. Let's find who did the crime. It's not supposed to be, look, we've identified a man. Let's find crimes to pin on the man.
Right.
That's communism.
Yeah.
That's Joseph Stalin. That's Russia. That's everything we went and fought against. That's the reason we had the forgotten war in Korea, where thousands of men died. That's the reason North and South Korea is split to this day. That's the reason all those young Americans died in Vietnam. That's the reason my father served in the Air Force. That's the reason we were all proud to be American to fight against communism. That was the whole fucking point of it. That's why I have the passport. And I land home in the country which I was born in, which my father served for, and I'm not fucking welcome. Why? Because a liberal George Soros-funded NGO lied to the Romanian news. And now Ron DeSantis is going to pretend anything the fucking Romanians say matters. Because if it does, I bust my case. If you listen to the Romanians, I'm innocent. So what the fuck are you even talking about?
Right.
It's a setup, head to toe, man. Head to toe.
Well, if anybody can survive it, I think you can. You're very strong-willed. So
come visit me.
Martin going with it too? No. That's all we gotta pick it up.
So
come visit me in jail.
I fucking pissed on myself and gave up.
I know. Promise to come visit me. It's all I want.
You're Romanian?
Oh, jail here.
Oh yeah.
Oh, all right, Jake.
I'll put some money on your books.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I'll get some ramen. I believe these are Hodge twins ramen. How you guys famous around the block?
Right.
I got it. I got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah.
One hostile left. Take that asshole down. Start. And we ain't done yet. Lock it down.
It's the Democrats, man. A bunch of slaves.
That what? You ain't trying to hear what?
Bingo. That's a hostile.
Listen to politics. This ain't politics.
Search and destroy.
¿Ya se fue, sí?
Remind those shitheads who they're dealing with.
Ya no se oye. Nah. Hell yeah. No.
Bomb carrier down.
He's up. I'm guessing he's up there.
One enemy standing. Find them. End them. They're gearing up for a final push. Hope you left some in the tank. Bomb plan in progress. The bomb has been planted.
Oh, he's out back. He's gonna go up. He's going up.
He's fitting. He's fitting to go up.
3 rounds in a row. Hot shit.
Maybe he needs to fit in.
Each exercise.
Fit in to lay him down.
Search and destroy.
Fit in. I need pants that would fit in me.
Defend the objective.
1 second. Fit in. Where is my brain cells? Hopefully,
And,
I
on
can
the other
fit
hand,
in.
the basis that the prisoner treated his own companions badly was exceptionally contemptible. Obviously, the prisoners found the lack of character in such men
UAVL.
especially upsetting, while they were profoundly moved by the smallest kindness received from any of the guards. I remember how one day a foreman secretly gave me a piece of bread which I knew he must have saved from his breakfast ration. It was far more than the small piece of bread which moved me to tears at that time. It was the human something which this man also gave to me, although which complete the gift.
So they knocked you on your ass.
From all this we may learn
What
that
are you
there are
gonna
two
do about
races
it?
of men in this world, but only these two, the race of the decent man and the race of the indecent man. Both are found everywhere. They penetrate into all groups of society. No group consists entirely of decent or indecent people. In this sense, no group is of pure race, and therefore one occasionally found a decent fellow among the camp guards. Life in a concentration camp tore open the human soul and exposed its depths. Is it
$7?
surprising that in those
7.20?
depths we again found only human qualities which in their very nature were a mixture of good and evil? The rift dividing good from evil, which goes through all human beings, reaches into the lowest depths and becomes apparent even on the bottom of the abyss which is laid open by the concentration camp. And now to the last chapter in the psychology of a concentration camp, the psychology of the prisoner who has been released. In describing the experiences of liberation, which naturally must be personal, we shall pick up the threads of that part of our narrative which told of the morning when the white flag was hoisted above the camp gates after days of high tension.
One hostile left.
This state of inner suspense was followed by total relaxation.
He's gonna
But it
defend.
would be quite wrong to think that we went mad with joy.
I thought he's
What,
back there
then,
behind the
did
road.
happen? With tired steps we prisoners dragged ourselves to the camp gates.
Do better.
Timidly we looked around and glanced at each other questioningly. Then we ventured a few steps out of camp.
What?
This time no orders were shouted at us, nor was there any need to duck quickly to avoid a blow or kick.
Oh, Kenny had a tablet. I could have downloaded it.
This time the guards offered us cigarettes. We hardly recognized them at first. They had hurriedly changed into civilian clothes. We walked slowly along the road leading from the camp. Soon our legs hurt and threatened to buckle. But we limped on. We wanted to see the camp surroundings for the first time with the eyes of free men.
It's not downloaded on the Kenny
Freedom,
yet.
we repeated to ourselves, and yet we could not grasp it. We had said this word so often during all the years we dreamed about it, that it had lost its meaning. Its reality did not penetrate into our consciousness. We could not grasp the fact that freedom was ours. We came to meadows full of flowers. We saw and realized that they were there, but we had no feelings about them. The first spark of joy came when we saw a rooster with a tail of multicolored feathers.
Man,
But it remained only a spark. We did not yet belong to this world.
Discover yourself.
In the evening when we all met again in our hut, one said secretly to the other, "Tell me, were you pleased today?" And the other replied, feeling ashamed as he did not know that we all felt similarly, truthfully, no. We had literally lost the ability to feel pleased and had to relearn it slowly. Psychologically, what was happening to the liberated prisoners could be called depersonalization. Everything appeared unreal, unlikely, as in a dream. We could not believe it was true. How often in the past years had we been deceived by dreams? We dreamt that the day of liberation had come, that we had been set free, had returned home, greeted our friends, embraced our wives, sat down at the table and started to tell of all the things we had gone through, even of how we had often seen the day of liberation in our dreams. And then, a whistle shrilled in our ears, the signal to get up, and our dreams of freedom came to an end. And now the dream had come true. But could we truly believe in it? The body has fewer inhibitions than the mind. It made good use of the new freedom from the first moment on. It began to eat ravenously, for hours and days, even half the night. It is amazing what quantities one can eat. And when one of the prisoners was invited out by a friendly farmer in the neighborhood, he ate and then drank coffee, which loosened his tongue, and he then began to talk, often for hours. The pressure which had been on his mind for years was released at last. Hearing him talk,
One got the impression that he had to talk, that his desire to speak was irresistible. I have known people who have been under heavy pressure only for a short time, for example, through a cross-examination by the Gestapo, to have similar reactions. Many days passed, until not only the tongue was loosened, but something within oneself as well, and feeling suddenly broke through the strange fetters which had restrained it. One day, a few days after the liberation, I walked through the country past flowering meadows, for miles and miles, toward the market town near the camp. Larks rose to the sky and I could hear their joyous song. There was no one to be seen for miles around. There was nothing but the wide earth and sky and the lark's jubilation and the freedom of space. I stopped, looked around, and up to the sky, and then I went down on my knees. At that moment there was very little I knew of myself or of the worlds. I had but one sentence in mind, always the same. I called to the Lord from my narrow prison and he answered me in the freedom of space. How long I knelt there and repeated this sentence memory can no longer recall. But I know that on that day, in that hour, my new life started. Step for step I progressed, until I again became a human being. The way that led from the acute mental tension of the last days in camp, from that war of nerves to mental peace, was certainly not free from obstacles. It would be an error to think that a liberated prisoner was not in need of spiritual care anymore. We have to consider that a man who has been under such enormous mental pressure for such a long time is naturally in some danger after his liberation, especially since the pressure was released quite suddenly. This danger, in the sense of psychological hygiene, is the psychological counterpart of the bends. Just as the physical health of the caisson worker would be endangered if he left his diver's chamber suddenly, where he is under enormous atmospheric pressure. So the man who has suddenly been liberated from mental pressure can suffer damage to his moral and spiritual health. During this psychological phase, one observed that people with natures of a more primitive kind could not escape the influences of the brutality which had surrounded them in camp life. Now, being free, they thought they could use their freedom licentiously and ruthlessly. The only thing that had changed for them was that they were now the oppressors instead of the oppressed. They became instigators, not objects, of willful force and injustice. They justified their behavior by their own terrible experiences. This was often revealed in apparently insignificant events. A friend was walking across a field with me toward the camp when suddenly we came to a field of green crops. Automatically, I avoided it. But he drew his arm through mine and dragged me through it. I stammered something about not treading down the young crops. He became annoyed, gave me an angry look and shouted, "You don't say. And hasn't enough been taken from us? My wife and child have been gassed, not to mention everything else, and you would forbid me to tread on a few stalks of oats." Only slowly could these men be guided back to the commonplace truth that no one has the right to do wrong, not even if wrong has been done to them. We had to strive to lead them back to this truth, or the consequences would have been much worse than the loss of a few thousand stalks of oats. I can still see the prisoner who rolled up his shirt sleeves, thrust his right hand under my nose and shouted, "May this hand be cut off if I don't stain it with blood on the day when I get home." I want to emphasize that the man who said these words was not a bad fellow. He had been the best of comrades in camp and afterwards. Apart from the moral deformity resulting from the sudden release of mental pressure, there were two other fundamental experiences which threatened to damage the character of the liberated prisoner: bitterness and disillusionment. Return to his former life. Bitterness was caused by a number of things he came up against in his former hometown. When, on his return, a man found that in many places he was met only with a shrug of the shoulders and with hackneyed phrases, he tended to become bitter and to ask himself why he had gone through all that he had. When he heard the same phrases nearly everywhere, "We did not know about it," and "We, too, have suffered," then he asked himself, "Have they really nothing better to say to me?" The experience of disillusionment is different.